All right, so today we're going to dive deep into the story of Nokia.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that company that kind of like ruled the mobile phone world back in the day and then practically vanished and they came back.
Yeah, they did.
It's really something.
It is.
We're going to be checking out a YouTube video from Logically Answered.
Okay.
It's called From Bankruptcy to Billions, The Rebirth of Nokia.
All right.
And let me tell you, this video is wild.
It's a crazy story.
So many twists and turns. I mean, in 2008, Nokia was making a ridiculous amount of money, like $76 billion in revenue.
Wow.
They were the top dogs.
They were the kings, yeah.
Can you even imagine, like, a world before smartphones?
I mean, it's hard to remember.
Where Nokia was like the Apple of its time.
Yeah, it's true. They were everywhere.
And then, boom, 2007, Steve Jobs unveils the iPhone.
Yeah.
And the video even uses footage from that original press conference.
Wow.
And you could just feel everything changing.
I bet, yeah.
And it's crazy to think that Nokia initially just dismissed the iPhone.
Really?
They were like, it's just a niche product.
Yeah.
It's not going to last. Our phones are way more durable.
So they didn't see it coming.
They were so focused on that Nokia durability. You
Yeah,
know.
those things were indestructible.
Yeah, but they completely missed how much consumers were starting to crave something new.
Yeah, something different.
Like those sleek touch screens and the easy-to-use interfaces.
It was a total shift.
It's almost like they were a victim of their own success.
I think that happens a lot.
Like they were so used to dominating
Right.
that they just couldn't see that the game was changing.
It's hard to see the change when you're on top, you know?
Yeah, and it wasn't just Apple either.
Oh, right.
You had companies like HTC and Google jumping in with their Android phones.
Right. The Android OS was starting to take off.
And suddenly Nokia's grip on the market was slipping.
And fast.
So they tried to fight back.
Okay.
They launched the N97.
EN97.
They called it the iPhone killer.
Oh, wow.
But it was a total flop.
Really? What happened?
Oh, man, I remember that phone.
I kind of do too, yeah.
It was clunky. The screen was unresponsive.
Oh, no.
And it was still running that old Symbian operating system.
Yeah.
You couldn't even find any good apps for it.
Oh, so the App Store was bad.
It was terrible. While Apple's App Store was exploding with over 100,000 apps.
Wow, that's a big difference.
The N97 had like 500.
Oof.
It was a disaster.
Yeah, I can see why that didn't work.
And Nokia knew it.
Yeah.
So they brought in a new CEO in 2010.
Okay.
Stephen Elop.
Stephen Elop. Okay.
He was supposed to be a change agent.
Change agent.
And he gave this crazy speech
Oh.
called the Burning Platform speech.
The burning platform.
He basically told everyone at Nokia that they were standing on a platform that was on fire.
Oh, wow.
And they needed to jump off fast.
That's intense.
This was meant to be like a rallying cry.
Right.
But it backfired big time.
House.
The speech leaked to the public.
Oh, no.
It caused a huge media frenzy.
I bet.
And it seriously damaged Nokia's brand and investor confidence.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like even when you try to do something good, it can have unintended consequences.
Definitely, yeah.
So now Nokia was at a crossroads. Do they stick with Symbian, which was clearly dying?
Right.
Do they embrace Android, which was on the rise? Or do they try something else entirely?
Yeah, they had some big choices to make.
And Elop decided to go for a Hail Mary.
A Hail Mary. Okay, what was that?
He decided to partner with Microsoft.
Microsoft. Interesting.
Yeah, and that's where things get really interesting.
I bet, yeah.
What was he thinking?
Yeah, why Microsoft?
So they teamed up with Microsoft, hoping that this Windows Phone thing was going to be the next big thing.
Right.
They launched the Lumia line with tons of hype, you know?
Yeah, Microsoft was really pushing it.
It seemed like it was going to be a hit.
Yeah, you'd think so, right?
Yeah. But it didn't work out that way.
It really didn't, no.
So, like, what went wrong?
Well, a few things. I mean, for starters,
Okay.
the Lumias had all these problems from the get-go.
Oh, really? Like what?
Like their interface, it was just so different. It was like they were trying to be too innovative, you know?
Yeah, I get that.
But if people can't figure out how to use their phone, that's a big problem.
It's true.
And then on top of that, the Windows Phone OS itself, it had all these limitations.
Oh, like what?
Like, it restricted the Lumias to single-core processors. And by that time, all the other phones were using dual-core or even quad-core.
Oh, wow.
So the Lumias were just slower, less powerful.
Okay, yeah. That's a
And they were missing some key features, too.
Like what?
Like a front-facing camera.
Oh, right. This was like the beginning of the selfie era.
Exactly. Everyone wanted to take selfies, and the Lumias didn't even have that.
And what about storage space?
Yeah, that was another issue. They had limited storage.
Right at a time when people were downloading more and more stuff.
Exactly. More apps, more music.
So basically, the Lumias were just kind of clunky and outdated.
Yeah.
And on top of all that, there was the app problem.
The app problem. Oh, right.
The Windows Phone app ecosystem was tiny.
It couldn't compete with Apple and Android.
Not even close.
So did developers just not want to make apps for Windows Phone?
I think they just didn't see it as a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the Lumias had a really limited app selection.
So it was like a bunch of little things that added up to a big problem.
It really was.
And then amidst all this, Elop decides to go back to Microsoft.
Oh, yeah, in 2014.
Yeah, and it's like all those whispers about his loyalty to Microsoft.
Right.
They just got louder,
Yeah, it does seem kind of suspicious.
And then Microsoft buys Nokia's Devices and Services division.
For $7.2 billion.
Yeah.
With Elop leading their mobile division.
It's almost like he orchestrated the whole thing.
It kind of does seem that way.
And for Nokia, this was devastating.
I mean, they were a giant.
They were.
And then their market share just plummeted.
It went from 33% down to 3%.
Wow.
They lost billions of euros.
They lost key employees.
And they lost their most important division.
It's a tough break.
It really is.
But Nokia had another division,
Oh, right. The Solutions and Networks department.
And they were doing pretty well, actually.
They were. And leading that division was a guy named Rajiv Suri.
Rajiv Suri, okay.
He'd been with Nokia for a long time.
Had he?
Yeah. He was quietly building up this division while all the phone drama was going on.
So he was kind of like the steady hand at the wheel.
That's a good way to put it.
While everyone else was panicking.
Yeah, he was the calm in the storm.
And Suri's leadership style was so different from Elop's.
Totally different. No more risky bets, no more dramatic speeches. He was all about stability and a long-term vision.
So what did he do first?
Well, he knew that he had to rebuild trust with the shareholders.
Yeah, they'd been through a lot.
Exactly. So he used the money from the Microsoft deal.
Okay.
And did a massive share buyback.
Oh, that's smart.
It was a way of signaling to the shareholders that Nokia was committed to a brighter future.
Like, we're not giving up. We're still here.
Yeah, and Suri didn't stop there.
Okay, what else did he do?
He saw that Nokia needed a new direction, and he saw potential in this new technology that was emerging.
What was that?
5G.
5G, the future of everything.
Right. And while everyone else was still focused on 4G, Suri was already making moves to make Nokia a leader in 5G.
So how did he do that?
Well, he made some strategic acquisitions.
Okay.
The biggest one was Alcatel-Lucent in 2015.
Alcatel-Lucent. I remember them.
Yeah, and this acquisition brought in Bell Labs.
Bell Labs, wow.
And all of their patents.
How many patents did they have?
Over 29,000.
That's a lot.
It is. And patents are like gold in the tech world,
Yeah, they're super valuable.
They give you exclusive rights to use certain technologies. And in the world of 5G, those patents were super important.
So Suri was essentially getting Nokia ready for the 5G battle.
He was, and the competition was fierce.
Who are they up against?
Huawei and Ericsson, mainly.
Those are big players.
They are, but Suri had a secret weapon.
Ooh, a secret weapon. What was it?
It was called Reef Shark.
Reef Shark. That's a cool name.
It was Nokia's new 5G chip.
Okay.
And it was revolutionary.
How?
It was smaller. It used way less power, and it had much higher bandwidth.
So it was like a super efficient, super powerful 5G engine.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
And that made a big difference.
A huge difference. Nokia's 5G equipment became more cost-effective.
Okay.
And more efficient for telecom operators.
So they had an edge over the competition.
They did,
yeah.
But Suri's strategy wasn't just about having the best technology.
Okay, so what else was it about?
He also shifted Nokia's business model.
In what way?
He moved away from the consumer market.
So no more phones?
Not really. He decided to focus on providing 5G infrastructure to businesses.
Interesting.
So instead of competing with Apple and Samsung,
right,
Nokia was going to be the one powering the networks that those phones rely on.
That's a pretty big change.
It was, but it was a smart move.
Yeah, why is that?
It allowed Nokia to leverage their expertise in networking.
Okay.
And tap into a huge and growing market.
So did it work?
It did. Nokia started winning all these big 5G contracts.
With
companies like NTT Docomo, AT&T, Vodafone.
Wow, those are big names.
They are, and by late 2024, Nokia had over 300 commercial 5G agreements.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is. They went from being on the verge of collapse
Yeah.
to leading the 5G revolution.
What a comeback story.
It really is.
But what about Elop?
Oh, yeah. What happened to him after he went back to Microsoft?
Did his gamble pay off? So Elop went back to Microsoft thinking he was going to make Windows Phone a huge success.
Yeah, like he was going to turn things around.
But it didn't really work out that way, did it?
Not really, no. The Microsoft Devices group just kept struggling. Windows Phone never really caught on.
And what happened to the division?
They pretty much shut it down in 2015.
So Elop's big gamble didn't pay off?
It didn't. No.
And his career?
Yeah, it never really recovered.
It's kind of sad in a way.
It is. It's like he had all this ambition, but it ended up backfiring.
And meanwhile, Suri,
Yeah.
he became the hero of Nokia's comeback story.
He did. He was the steady leader that Nokia needed.
It's amazing how different their leadership styles were.
I know, right? Elop was all about taking big risks. And Suri was more cautious, you know?
Yeah, he was focused on the long game.
Exactly. And it paid off in the end.
It's a good lesson for all of us, I think.
It is, yeah. Sometimes the best approach is to be patient and strategic.
And Nokia's story is just incredible.
It really is. They were the kings of mobile phones.
And then they almost disappeared.
But they came back stronger than ever.
It's proof that even when things look bleak, there's always hope.
There is. You just got to be willing to adapt.
And Nokia was willing to change.
They embraced new ideas.
They took a chance on 5G.
And it paid off big time.
It's inspiring, honestly.
It is, yeah. It shows that anything is possible.
Even if you're a giant company.
Right. Even if you've made mistakes in the past.
You can always turn things around.
Absolutely.
So what can we learn from Nokia's journey?
That's a good question.
I think we can learn that it's important to be adaptable, to have a long-term vision.
And to never give up on your dreams.
Even when the world throws you a curveball.
Exactly. You gotta roll with the punches.
And come back swinging.
That's the Nokia way.
Well, that was quite a ride.
It was a real roller coaster.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Nokia.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.